So I come up, I'm like almost in the wrong lane and I'm like struggling to swim and it's like feels horrible, but I kept pushing. I had the confidence that it's not game over. Everyone just wants the shortcut, right? They want the quick fix. The reality is there is no single quick fix. You don't need to do 100 things really, really well. You just need to do like 5 or 10 important things really, really well. You do that a couple hundred or 1,000 times, you'll probably be pretty good at it.
Finally, I want to ask you, from your perspective, what is the high performance mindset?
High performance mindset is...
Fares Koussaibati is the author of the Amazon bestseller Swim Like a Pro and is the CEO and co-founder of the MySwimPro app. MySwimPro is an app that helps people improve their performance and health through swimming. Fares' work has been featured by Apple, Forbes, Men's Health, New York Times, and the list goes on. In this episode, we spoke about the mindset required for you to become a master at what you do. We spoke about the importance of being resilient and if life hacks exist. All right, before we kick off with today's episode, if you can do me the small favor and subscribe to this channel, I'll truly appreciate it and it'll help me bring you more and more high performance to this show. This is the High Performance Mindset and today's guest is Fares Koussaibati. Enjoy this episode.
Fares, you have a post on your Instagram account and you mentioned that the pool is not filled with water, it's medicine. What do you mean by that?
Oh, we're going deep, pun intended. So I think, the water is somewhere that is safe, which is kind of ironic actually to say that because the water can be associated with fear for a lot of people. They're scared of the water.
That's how I associate it.
But for me, I think, I'm grateful that because I have the safety established, because I know how to swim, I can go to the pool, I can go to the water, and I can truly escape from the world. And, I don't want to mean it in a sense that like I need to escape, but it gives me that safe place where I don't have my phone, don't have distractions. I can focus on my body. I can focus on my technique, on the workout that I'm doing, and I can just be free. And for the last 3 decades, for basically most of my life, I'm so grateful that I found that, for me at least, and other people have other ways that they can find that, but for me, it's the water.
When did you first start swimming? How did that happen?
I was a 4-year-old crazy child, and my parents put me in swimming lessons. And it's so funny. I was going over old family videos, and I was watching the first few times that I went swimming and like learned how to swim with swim lessons. And you just see this raw kid running around at the pool and just having a good time. And it was never really competitive for me. I did end up, swimming and competing, went to university, but it was not about that. When I got started, it was more my parents just put me in swimming to like learn how to swim. And then I fell in love with it. And I would always look forward to school ending and being on summer vacation because the pool would open. Because where I grew up, the pools are only open in the summer. And it's something that I really looked forward to every single year. And eventually I did the swim team and it carried on from there.
Do you remember your first win?
I do remember my first win actually, and it was pretty symbolic. And I never thought it would be that big of a deal in the moment, but I think back, I was 10 years old and I won our local championship thing in the 25-meter breaststroke. And it was such a big deal for me and even my family at the time, because the year before I was on the swim team, but I didn't even qualify to go to this competition. Like I didn't even qualify to go to the finals is what they called it. And then when I was 9, and then when I was 10, in the preliminary, I qualified first, and then the final, I won the event. And so you have 6 people in the final and you take a photo and I have a medal. And since then I've done a lot of races and I've won some, I've lost more than I've won. And I still think back, that was a pivotal point of establishing confidence because I don't think you necessarily need to have a lot of wins. You don't need to be Michael Phelps and win every single time. But I do think you need to have some level of success to give you just a little bit more of a push of self-confidence. And I think that really helps develop your mindset of knowing that you're capable of doing something, especially when it contrasts with the year before, not even qualifying for that event.
Were you doing other kinds of sports before your first win?
In swimming, I mean, swimming has been my main thing for most of my life, but I did do other sports. I did like soccer, and I was pretty bad. I mean, I tried others like tennis. I mean, I was such a goofball. I would be in tennis lessons or tennis class, and then I would try and hit the tennis balls into the lake behind the tennis court. Like I was just a terrible student. In swimming, I think I was like actually an okay student, and I guess that's required if you want to be good at anything. You need to be coachable, and I think I was potentially more coachable, both from a mindset as well as a physical. Like I was able to manipulate my body in the water maybe better than I could on land. And I just, I was a relatively small kid growing up. So for most of the sports, and I was young for my grade, I was not very competitive because I was way smaller than all the other kids. So something like basketball or these other like aggressive sports were really not in question. But for swimming, for whatever reason, it ended up working out a little bit differently.
So from your perspective as a child or 10 years old or 9, what made you more inclined towards swimming out of the other sports?
I think it was the beauty of swimming. And what I mean by that is where I grew up, it was like a waterfront type community. So we didn't live on the water, but you lived a few blocks away from the lake. So everyone learns how to swim. And our pool that I learned how to swim at was beautiful, had a beach. So you can be on the pool deck and you look at a pool, then you have a beach, then you have the open water, which in the United States, in Michigan, is not very common. You don't really have that. You don't associate that view with a cold climate. And so every summer I would look forward to that. And I think just the beauty of being in the water and the way we started to talk about the medicine, and that just feels different than doing any other sport. And I think now that I think about it out loud, the fact that you only get it for a few months of the year, I think made it more special.
Absolutely.
As opposed to everything else, even like soccer or whatever, you're still playing it like in school, in the playground, at the beginning of the year, end of the year. But swimming, you only got like 2 or 3 months. So in a year, that's only 20% of the year.
Absolutely.
So I think I looked forward to it more.
What was your most difficult competition that you were able to either succeed or you made your biggest growth?
I think those are two different things for me, at least. Like I think about success and growth. I think those are two different things. So
Great.
one that pops in my mind when it comes to like growth, because I didn't win this event. So I was fast forward a couple of years. I'm like a teenager, and I dive in and my goggles fall off my eyes and my mouth in the final. So it's like a preliminary and then a final. And again, I'm a teenager. Like it's not that big of this is not, the Olympics or whatever. But what happened in that moment, for whatever reason, I had the confidence that like it's not game over. And so I have the video of this race too. It's hilarious to watch because I like pop up, the goggles are in my mouth. I'm like drowning. It's breaststroke. And so I'm in like, I think I was the number 1 or number 2 seed after the preliminary. And I'm in like 5th or 6th place off of the dive. So I come up, I'm like almost in the wrong lane and I'm like struggling to swim. And it's like, feels horrible. But I kept pushing, and then heading into it's a 50, so 25.
So when you're saying you kept pushing, like you still had your goggles on, or you
I
put
still
them
had the
back?
goggles in my mouth. I didn't like kind of give up on it type of thing.
So you continued swimming
I
without
continued
having your
swimming
goggles?
and like as if nothing happened, but obviously I'm like drowning in my mouth. And so I during the race, I pull off the goggles and then I made a comeback to 2nd place after
Wow.
being in like 5th, way behind. And if you were to play it out, like I probably would have won that event, given all the other stuff if I didn't screw up in the finish.
Yeah.
And I think growth came because of that, because I gained so much self-belief that like, and positivity too, even though something not catastrophic, but something bad happened. And that was actually, thinking back, that was the worst. I've had goggles fill up and like things don't go as planned, but like from an execution, that's probably one of the worst events that I've ever had. But I think because it happened at a younger age and leading into it, I wasn't that upset about it. And I think having that maybe level head at such a young age allowed me to face that adversity, not just in athletics, but like in business and life. So I think from that perspective of growth, I think that's what I experienced. I would say something from a success perspective was more recent. 2 years ago, I raced at the Dubai Open.
Okay.
And, this was an event that I wasn't planning on doing. I didn't know if I would be in Dubai in the first place. And so I'm in Dubai. I come to this event and I actually performed a best time in my event. And this was 10 years after competing in college. So to be able to go a best time, a PR, 10 years after where you should be in your prime, gave me even more confidence. And that was a success considering the amount of training that I had done. And it gave me a lot more, again, confidence in my, not necessarily swimming abilities, but my coaching abilities. Because now I was training myself. And given what I do professionally with MySwimPro, it's like, yeah, I know what I'm talking about. And so I think as a validation of success, I felt that was actually a lot more significant because in 2024, I hit multiple PRs. And so to do that in your 30s, after having a competitive background is actually not that common. So it gave me a lot of self-belief that like, I know what I'm doing as a coach. I know what I'm doing as an athlete. And if people are following my journey, they should have more confidence that I know what I'm talking about as well.
So what caused you to break these PRs now versus before? Like what changed? Despite that you were not even working towards that.
Well, I was working to be fast, but it wasn't like this is my number one goal in life. I was, still working and whatever. I think it's a combination of things. So, lifestyle is very important to athletic performance. So getting enough sleep, nutrition. I had actually just partially moved to Dubai. So I was in a new routine, and that was actually everything that I've learned in my first 3 decades of life. I was applying. So I was getting better sleep. My training was more specific. I had more accumulation of knowledge
Did you
about
think,
training.
like moving or relocating kind of threw you off your routine?
I think it enhanced my routine.
How?
Because growing up, I was living with my family, right? And so, love my family. My mom's an amazing cook, all that good stuff. At the same time, when it comes to like what I need, that household is not designed for me. It's designed for my family situation.
Right.
So when I was on my own more often, I had traveled and whatever, but when I was on my own more often, and even today, I'm able to cater exactly what I need from not only a sleep perspective, but nutrition, like what I'm eating, when I'm eating, also just the positivity of, my surroundings. So Dubai's an amazing place. And I was meeting people in both business and athletics, meeting people in swimming. And I think all of that put together, because in swimming, it's 100th of a second. So, when I say I want a PR, it's not like I dropped, like I'm a different athlete. No, I'm just an enhanced, refined version of myself. And I think at the level that I'm at, you need to be precise at everything to have that happen. You don't just accidentally go a best time in a race, especially if you've been doing it for 3 decades. So I think a combination of things.
Yeah, I remember reading a quote from Arnold Schwarzenegger saying, nothing great is achieved accidentally or by accident.
Exactly. You don't just fall in the water and, oh, look, it's Michael
it's a
Phelps.
PR.
Like, wow, okay. Exactly.
Let's talk about your book, 101 Ways to Swim Faster. What inspired you to write this book?
I've written a few books, and this book specifically was about how do I make this as simple as possible to be faster in swimming? Because over the years, I've learned like there's so many things I could talk about from a content perspective. I can talk about technique, breathing, training, nutrition, mindset, and I touch on all of these. But when you break it down, everyone just wants the shortcut, right? They want the quick fix. The reality is there is no single quick fix. And so when I was thinking about, packaging this, my first book is called Swim Like a Pro. And this is a more holistic guide to being a better swimmer. And that was really just packaging everything I know and putting it in a book. The problem with that is it's not quick fix enough. Okay. People just want just tell me 3 specific things that I can go do right now. And so if you think, well, I got 101 for you, instead of 3, I'll give you 100. And really the point of it is there are a lot of it is stuff that I've maybe already talked about in my other books or content. But when you break it down to, hey, there's only 2 pages here on one of the tips, right? So there's 101 of them. Yeah, you can read the whole book. But if you just take away 5 or 10 of these and relentlessly get good at them, you'll be really good at swimming. You don't need all 101. And I think this is true for a lot of things in life. You don't need, if you want to be a good podcaster, if you want to be a good parent, you don't need to do 100 things really, really well. You just need to do 5 or 10 important things really, really well. And in swimming, I think this is very true. You nail a few things, you do that a couple 100 or 1,000 times, you'll probably be pretty good at it.
And tell me also about your app, your swimming training app, which is MySwimPro.
MySwimPro. Yeah, we launched it in 2015. And interestingly enough, now that it's been over 10 years,
wow,
I didn't think I'd be talking about this, like I didn't think I'd be still running the company that I started back then. So the reason why I started this is because when I was swimming and as a coach, I realized a lot of people have no idea how to get better at swimming. They're trying to figure out what to do.
Yeah.
And if they didn't have the structured training like I had, I mean, I was kind of an anomaly in the fitness market of the fact that I learned how to swim, multiple teams, swam in university, started coaching swimming when I was 17. That's not very common. And what I realized is most people would ask me for help. Like, hey, how do I write this workout? Like, what do I do? I want to get faster. I'm so slow. How do I improve? So we packaged all of that and we built an app that dynamically builds you a training program. And it was the first swimming app on the Apple Watch. And it was named App of the Year by Apple in 2016.
Wow.
And today we have, a couple million downloads on the platform. And it's still the core of our business. Now we do in-person retreats as well. And, it's interesting with technology because when I started the company, the idea for it, the iPhone and the Apple Watch, it was not the same market that we have today. Back then, the Apple Watch didn't exist. And then we were the first swimming app on the Apple Watch, and now it's our majority use case. And in 5 to 10 years, especially with AI, I don't really know what the future is actually going to hold. A lot of people ask me, they're like, so what's the future of swimming? I don't know. I hope that we can continue to innovate and be an important player that shapes the future of swimming. But I couldn't sit here and tell you what swimming is going to look like in 10 years. People will still swim, but in terms of how we do our application and our program and platform, we'll see.
But I do believe you need to focus on upgrading yourself and being ready, and then an opportunity will find you.
Yeah, I think you want to position yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, and not the other way around. Just like before you getting on Apple Store, you had already worked on the app.
Yeah, I was already in the market of swimming. It's not like I thought, well, what kind of an app can I launch? Well, let's launch a swimming app. I don't know how to swim, but I'm going to launch a swimming. Yeah, so I think it's just organically developed.
In terms of a person coming to learn swimming, what kind of mindset would give them the right patience to be able to, be a good student?
You mentioned the most important word, patience. Patience is, I
don't think there's any sport that tests your patience more than swimming.
Exactly. I was hoping you didn't say something. I was like, yeah, swimming is the most difficult to master because what the reason why it is. So my mom learned how to swim less than 2 years ago at the age of 62.
Wow.
And so, I worked with her and she was able to go in 3 weeks from never putting her face in the water to swimming 25 meters unassisted in 3 weeks. And so she made incredible progress in a short period of time. But the thing that holds people back from doing even that is the fear of the water. So from a mindset perspective, the psychology is like the most important thing. And a lot of times people are fearful of the water because they've had some situation in the past. So either when they were a kid or an adult, or they know someone, or this fear is brewing. And so if they get to be an adult and they still haven't learned how to swim or at least be comfortable in the water, it makes it that much harder. So before you can even get in the water and learn how to swim, the mindset is you have to be open to kind of working through these challenges as to why you have that fear and how to very gradually desensitize yourself to your own fear of the water. And so once that's the first third of it. The first half, you get over the fear of swimming, the fear of the water.
Can we use your mom's example?
Yeah.
Do you know what was her fear before?
So,
and why only at 60?
So it doesn't have to be a fear. It just could just be you never learn because you're never around it. So for my mom, actually, she just was never around a swimming pool type of thing.
So that was holding her back.
That was holding her back. Yes. So I would say for a lot of people, it is fear because they maybe did have the opportunity. And that's sometimes the most difficult. For someone like my mom, actually, she just never thought, well, I'm going to go learn how to swim. It just never thought that's something that I would do in her mindset. And so she had taken me to thousands of swim workouts and swimming competitions. So it really wasn't like she's afraid of going on a boat. She would panic if she was in the water, but she would never be in the water. So
why wouldn't she be in the water?
Exactly. And that's, I think, a lot of people don't, it doesn't cross their mind. My mom, it's kind of one of those things she would say, I never thought that I would swim. Like, that's not what I do. That's what you do. That's what my kids do. I put them in swimming and I give to them. And for me, it was important for her to learn how to swim because she put so much time and effort into me. So now to reinvest just a little bit of time relative to what she had put into me. And that was actually my most recent book. It's called How Not to Drown. And I talk about the story of teaching my mom how to swim and like how you would learn how to swim. And the first third of that book is the psychology and mindset of, you know, of overcoming these fears or challenge, whatever the reason is that you haven't learned how to swim and now you do. It's funny, actually, I have in my book, in the very beginning, I say, send me an email with the subject line, I'm ready. And it's about that first step, because the first step is the hardest to doing anything. Whether you're learning how to swim or learning how to, you're publishing your first video on the internet, doesn't matter. The first step is the hardest. So I tell people, you email me. And so now, every day or other day, I get an email from some stranger saying, I'm ready. And they tell me their swimming story as to, you know, how they're overcoming their fear or like where the fear came from. And normally there's a trigger event of why they're getting back into it or why they're starting. It could be, you know, they had someone pass away in their family. It could be they changed jobs, they moved locations, they got dumped by their boyfriend or girlfriend, whatever. I've heard lots of stories about this. And so I think the mindset is having the patience and being open-minded to embarking on this journey and having a long-term view on it.
Wow. What would you say was one of your biggest challenges as an athlete?
As an athlete, we were talking off camera just before. I've had some injuries, which I think are pretty challenging. I broke my elbow last year, and that kept me out of the water for a while. COVID actually kept me out of the water for 3 months. And at that time, that was the longest I hadn't swum in 10 years because I'd always been swimming like year round. And so for some people, like, you know, COVID was very stressful. And a lot of people are like, oh, you know, you work out, you go for a run. Well, I couldn't do the workout that I do. And I wasn't as big into weightlifting at the time. And gyms were closed anyway. So I think as a challenge, it's like, oh, it's so stressful in the world. And I can't even work out. Like I can't even do the thing that releases endorphins and dopamine. So that was pretty challenging. So I think between that and maybe some injuries has been pretty challenging. And then actually one more, maybe this is the most significant. When I started college, I was a walk-on athlete, meaning I didn't get recruited to my university. And university training is like a very high level. It's basically like professional athletics. You're training 20 to 30 hours a week and you have class, and I was coaching. And I considered quitting swimming at that point because it was just too much between class and training and coaching. Like I wanted to do like 3 different lives all at the same time. And it was really, really difficult in that first semester of my university.
I think that's a very good point. A lot of people can decide to quit something just because they're overwhelmed in that period by, you know, just adding stuff. And sometimes the solution is just to drop one of the things and it will make you move faster towards whatever you're achieving.
Yeah, I think it's also growing pains. Like for me, I was living 3 different lives at the same time. I didn't drop any of them. It was more of a matter of patience, of time horizon, because I actually am very happy I didn't drop any of them.
How did you manage to push through?
I think it was just taking a step back and looking at that time horizon, because like zooming really far out, because in the short term, I was thinking like, oh my God, these days are so long. These weeks feel like years, and I'm going to do this for the next 4 years. Like, oh my God. But what happened was you kind of get used to it. And I think you're around other people who are doing the same type of thing.
So how do you zoom out?
That's a good question. I'm trying to think in that moment.
Yeah.
You know, there were a couple people on the team that I would talk to about this. And I was seeing some people did drop out. So we had there were 2 or 3 other people in my same class, and they started the same time as me, and they dropped off as well. They dropped off, and I was seeing that, and I was like, am I really, I didn't want to like, am I a quitter type of thing? It was more like, I can manage this. It's difficult right now, but this isn't the rest of my life, and I'm getting used to it. So it's like, there is light at the end of the tunnel. And also from a training perspective, we were doing the hardest training at that point in the season. So I knew in a month or 2, we are going to do less training. My body's going to be less physically destroyed, and like school's going to get easier. We're going to have like Christmas vacation. Like I knew that was coming. And so when I zoom out, that's what I meant. Like if I just look at a calendar, like I can see progress. I can see the end of the tunnel. And so it doesn't make sense to quit now because I knew I would regret that because I really just needed to toughen up. And I think like, I don't know, sound weird, but like as a man, you got to like work through hard stuff. And there are people who are going through way harder stuff than what I was going through. This was more just like a physical time management thing. And I'm happy that I persevered through that.
Talking about toughening up and having a strong mindset, growing up, who did you learn that from?
I mean, I think you start with the people closest to you. So for me, I mean, that was my parents. They immigrated to the United States and, you know, kind of worked their way up. My parents are very hard workers. So I think the hard work part comes from seeing that. And then I think for me, growing up at a time when the internet was starting to really explode and you could follow other people online, and then YouTube was starting to develop, like I started to see other personalities, like in swimming, you know, like Michael Phelps was one of those people that you see developing. And because he was 5, 6 years older than me, you know, he was finding success, going through things, training more than I was. And so I think just seeing that was like, yeah, of course I'm training hard. Like this is what it takes. And he's training more than me. But before you wouldn't really see that. And I think growing up in a time where I had that transition from like my immediate circle of people that I can see in real life to then having these like digital mentors almost of people that now I've been lucky enough to meet a lot of these people that were my idols. But at the time, it's like that's someone you see on TV or at the Olympics. And then you can associate like, oh, I can be at that level if I just focus and train, and they're working hard. That's what it takes.
You said you learned it from your family. How do you feel they nourished the work ethic in you as a kid or as a teenager?
I think a lot of it is just seeing it, you know, just seeing them work, seeing them, you know, approach different things. At some level, you know, in certain areas, it's not good because, you know, there's more efficient ways to do things, but they have this mindset of like, we can do it ourselves. We don't need anyone to help us. And so, like I said, you know, it's pros and cons of that. You want to have a good balance of how independent you want to be versus seeking help from other people, whether it's like doing manual chores or like financially or whatever. So I think the proximity is really the most important thing, which is why I'm really grateful to have, you know, a family where I grew up with, you know, both of my parents. And I know some other people, they don't have that. And so you got to find a way to surround yourself with some sort of positive influence where you can learn some of these core skills, because, you know, I don't have kids now, but I'd like to have a family in the future. And, you know, you can tell them one thing, but they see what you do. So, you know, the kids are going to see what you're doing, whether you like it or not. So, you know, whether it's the way that you have respect or the language that you use or your work ethic, I think it's the people closest to you.
In one of your posts, you put a reminder that the number one or one of somebody who has, let's say, 1 million subscribers on YouTube, or a CEO of a company, or an athlete would not make fun of you going to the gym. Or a bodybuilder wouldn't make fun of you going to the gym. If you're an athlete, you wouldn't make fun of, you know, that sport if you're starting. If you're a top YouTuber, he would never make fun of someone starting a new channel.
Making their first video, exactly.
Yeah. Why did you post that?
That was a really powerful message that I saw something similar that someone else had posted, and I thought it really resonated with me. And I wanted to put kind of my own spin on it type of thing. And I wanted, you know, people that are following me or my closest people to, you know, because I really feel like I live by a lot of those virtues. The other one was like a millionaire or something wouldn't criticize someone who's making their first investment or whatever. And so the idea is like anyone who's developed themselves and worked towards something over a longer period of time and they found some level of success, they're never going to talk badly about someone who's just getting started, because that's where they were at one point. And so, you know, hate never comes from the top. Exactly. And so, you know, whether it's, you know, I get a lot of nasty comments on YouTube, especially just a virtue of the numbers, right? If you have 1,000 comments or 100 comments, 1% of them is probably going to be negative. And so I think, I don't know, at that moment when I made that post, maybe that I felt stronger because I was getting more hate, or if someone I knew or other people I knew were getting more hate online. But I did feel that message was important. And at that moment, I wanted to share my own spin on it. And I think that's so true. In swimming, for example, you know, I'm never going to talk negatively on someone who's trying to learn how to swim, even though I'm like a very accomplished swimmer. And, you know, like on YouTube, I have like 1 million subscribers. if someone's uploading their first video, even here at this conference, I've talked to people who are just getting started, and I'm like more enthusiastic to help them and to share anything that I can to encourage them than someone maybe who's kind of burned out and they have like 10 million subscribers.
All right, then finally, I want to ask you, from your perspective, what is the high performance mindset?
High performance mindset is something that you develop in your own way that's aligned to what's important to you. And so whether it's athletically or financially, you are committed to your internal cause. And I think when it comes to performance, you know, your ability to repeatedly execute on that is what's going to allow you to perform. And if it's not true to yourself, if it's not true to your purpose, again, whether it's in business or financially or creating content, whatever, if it's not aligned with what you actually want and you don't do it consistently, you're never going to be performative in that level. So I think the mindset is being able to do that consistently over time. And if you have that, then the rest will take care of itself.
Fares,
Shukran.
it's been a pleasure having you.
Thank you.